Hi, my name is Liam O'Hare. I'm a Vice President of Sales with NewEnglandsystems. Today we're at the New England Netezza User Group, held at the IBM offices in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Today we have some interesting content to discuss. So for those of you not familiar with the user group, it's basically a forum where people interested in data warehousing, data integration, and analytics come to discuss pertinent matters in their industry. We have a customer speaking at the event tonight. Constant Contact is the customer. They're going to review how they've used IBM's InfoSphere stack for data integration and data quality, how they've used a data warehousing appliance for their middle tier for their data warehousing needs, IBM Netezza, and they're also going to discuss their front-end BI solution, which is IBM Cognos. A lot of organizations look at these discrete technologies as separate solutions, when in fact when you tie them together, that's when you really get the value of analytics. NES puts on these Netezza users groups basically every quarter, if not more frequently. So we encourage customers to come. The content is usually very interesting, very helpful in terms of understanding how to better use analytics and data, and we're looking forward to a good event tonight.
The company is probably best known as an email marketing company, but our core mission really is to help small businesses and organizations create and grow customer relationships. And we've done that primarily through email marketing, which is 90% of our business. But we've gone through quite a transformation as a company over the last 5 years, expanding our product line, growing pretty significantly, and all of those led to lots of information needs and analytical challenges that caused us to take a look at IBM's technology stack and tools like Netezza. I want to talk just for a couple minutes about the business challenges that we faced as a company and what led us to think about analytics and how an appliance like Netezza could help us. As I mentioned, I think around the time Steve and I got to Constant Contact, we were about 400 employees operating primarily in North America, primarily as an email marketing company, with about 200,000 customers. Today, we've grown by over 350,000 customers. We're well over 500,000 customers today. And we've been transforming the company. We're in the midst of transforming the company from a one-product email marketing company to a company that has lots of products and services designed to make small businesses and nonprofits successful. And there's a lot of information and analytics that has to go into that transformation. We have always been an analytical and data-driven company, but have aspired to get better at that every day, every year, and need tools like the ones we're going to talk about to do that. And part of my mantra as in my role at Constant Contact is to really talk about faster speed to insight. So how do we go from data to being able to turn that data into insight and knowledge as quickly as possible? So all of those things led us to be taking a good look last year at Netezza and our entire warehouse and come up with a plan for a next generation data warehouse, of which Netezza, Cognos, and some other pieces were vital components. So why do we need a next generation data warehouse at Constant Contact? Speed. We grew over the last 5 years from a fairly highly centralized business intelligence and analytics function with a small team to a company that really wanted to think about self-service business intelligence and analytics. Needed to provide information to people quickly and rapidly, and wanted our BI analysts to have as much efficiency and improved efficiency as possible. And it's not just about getting more things done. An appliance like Netezza allowed us to go from getting to the data be 80% of their job to making it 20% or less of their job, and freeing them up to think about what the data was telling them and to think about the insights that they're getting from the data. So it's had an enormous impact. We certainly continue to look at self-service analytics as a core thing that we need to enable. I mentioned we were 400 employees when I joined, 450. We just passed 1,300 employees of the company. So there are more and more stakeholders that need information on a daily basis. We knew that we needed information and insights to scale and grow our business. And we knew that analytics was something that we're all very passionate about, and core to our success was really getting the right information over to people who could make data-driven decisions. For a couple of years, when we launched our first generation warehouse, we still relied on IBM technology. We used the DB2 Balanced Warehouse approach. And took that as far as we could. We did pretty well with it. We grew, we had a solution that could scale to about 6 terabytes. And we used 3 or 4 terabytes of that solution. Netezza allowed us to get even more scale. So now, with the Netezza 6, we can scale up to 45 terabytes of compressed data. So when we think about big insights, when we think about the other challenges that we want to face as an analytical organization, that scale is going to be absolutely critical to us. And then one of the things that we are looking very seriously at and planning for over the next few months is really to step up our analytical efforts with predictive analytics, leveraging tools like the analytics that come on board with Netezza, leveraging tools like SPSS as well. So Netezza is a cornerstone piece of that as well.
So this is the POC timeline, and really, I'm not going to go into all the details around here, but for the most part, it was 8 business days. We did it about 2 Thanksgivings ago, so it spanned. So they had the holiday in the middle, so it spanned around 2 weeks. But pretty much it started day 1. The folks landed the Netezza box in our data center, plugged it in, turned it on, powered it up, connected it to the network. And day 2 started loading data and performing the tests, and that took us all the way out to the very end. And if I recall correctly, I think we were about a day ahead of schedule. And so these are the main POC use cases. The first one is tool compatibility. Did our tools, we had Cognos and DataStage, we had some other SQL, tools like Toad and Aquadata Studio. We want to make sure they played nicely with Netezza. And then the next point, is probably the most important one, obviously, is overall query performance. I mean, we wanted to, we actually asked our BI analysts to give us their hairiest, nastiest queries so we could test them on Netezza and see how they play. And our goal was success criteria was to get 2x performance improvement. And lastly, we want to assess the migration effort. We want to know what we're getting ourselves into. I mean, if we purchase this box, are we looking at a year migration path, 6 months, or 3 months? And so the results of tool compatibility tests, we decided we were planning to upgrade to C10. So this is this is last year, early last year. And we decided to stick with Cognos 8.4, and we would upgrade to Cognos 10 shortly thereafter. So sticking with that version, we tested a few reports, and one of the things we did was we made sure we used reports that would use the framework manager model. Essentially, it utilizes the metadata layer in Cognos and pointed to Netezza. And pretty much, with a few tweaks there, like pretty much all the reports that worked from the framework manager model played flawlessly. The ones we tested got 2x performance improvement, which wasn't great, but part of the thing we realized was most of the work was still happening in Cognos. So we really needed to rework the FM model to really leverage the power of Netezza if we wanted. The next tool that we looked at was DataStage. We were on 8.1. There was a much better integration for 8.5 with Netezza, so we decided that we would upgrade so we could leverage the Netezza specific connector, and there's a lot more performance improvements and deeper integration. The jobs, because we had to change the connector, the jobs that we picked were just simple jobs that moved data back and forth. So the performance improvement there was like, I think one of the jobs was 10x and another one was 30x, so it was huge. But most of our ETL jobs did the work on the ETL server. They weren't doing it in Netezza. So overall, that was not typical. And the query performance test. Now, this was really the most astounding one. We had and what we tried to do is make it a fair fight. We said, don't change any of the queries. In fact, I mentioned Jeff Carlson. He was great because he would actually take a query and he'd call me and say, I got this query. It's for 30 minutes, and now it's I got it down to 2 minutes. But I know I can make it run in 10 seconds. And so we'd be like, don't stop. What we want to do is make sure that what we're doing is simulating the lift and shift. We want to do as little work as possible to move the queries over to Netezza and see how they play so we get a good apples to apples comparison. And again, as I said, the results were pretty phenomenal. And we did a quick just data compression test. We got like 4.7 to 1 compression on our current data. And of course, there's no indexes, so we had 30% savings there, and as you know, no performance penalty for using compression. So our Netezza migration plan, we found the way we planned it out was we wanted to do an upgrade for DataStage from 8.1 to 8.5, and we wanted to stand up a separate server so we could run them in parallel in case something went wrong. Migrating the ETL code to 8.5 and rewriting, that took the most time. That was the bulk of our work. Migrating the Cognos reports to point to Netezza As long as it was using the FM model, it was pretty easy. But we had a lot of reports that had passed through SQL. And those are the reports we had to spend a lot of time rewriting. And we tested, and we ran in parallel for about a month, and then we retired the old systems. And so this is just a quick project, a high-level project plan. Took us about 3 months to do, and we finished on time. And then you can see we also upgraded Cognos 10. It took less time later. And so lessons learned. So the main one is, sort of let the tools, these are sort of best practices anyway, but let the tools write the code wherever possible. Wherever we found ourselves writing, if we had hard-coded SQL, that's the stuff that just didn't port. We had to, it ported, some of it ported, but you had to look at every bit of SQL. And now sort of the last thing, the next bullet is, all the SQL had to be checked. We had different, there's some nuances with Netezza that were different than other database. It wasn't wrong, it was just different. So some of the functions work differently. Null handling could be a little bit different, I think, in some of the tools. So that was something we had to keep in mind. And again, I mentioned that Cognos ported almost perfectly as long as you use the FM model. Again, let the tools write the code. Unless you couldn't let the tool write the code, unless you had to hand code it. The DataStage 8.5 connectors, these are pretty new, I think, at the time we migrated over, and support was great about getting the fix packs in place so it would work, but we had some unusual behavior as we were migrating over from DB2 to Netezza, and we had, I would say, added a little bit to the schedule. It wasn't huge, but I did want to call it out. I think 8.7 is supposed to integrate a lot better with Netezza, as far as I know. Maybe some DataStage folks around here know that, but. The next bullet is we really need to move from ETL to ELT. Where the clear thing was where the work was operating on our ETL server, that's where we weren't getting the performance benefits. All of our new jobs, one of the things we were doing is anything new that we write, we follow ELT. And basically that means is we pull data from our source, we move it into Netezza as quickly as possible, and then perform the transformations in Netezza so we can take advantage of the MPP architecture. This other bullet I think is kind of a funny one because, you guys know it's not an OLTP database, but some people treat it as such, and some people actually do things that really you probably shouldn't be doing anyway. So actually, here's a sort of a funny story. There's a guy who wrote a Java application to point to our warehouse. He had it pointing to DB2. And he was supposed to read data, and he was showing me that he was having some performance problems. He said, I thought Netezza was supposed to be faster than DB2, but this is taking a long time. I'm only pulling 10,000 rows. And so he shows it to me, and it didn't perform well in DB2 either. But then he ran it, and I was looking at the admin console to see what was happening in the back end. He had 10,000 separate select statements for each row of data. Well, that doesn't really perform well in any database, but in Netezza especially does not perform well, at least in the version of, I think, NPS 6. So he had to rewrite his application. And then the other one is probably, I say probably a little counterintuitive, but it can perpetuate some bad behaviors. So, on a normal relational database, if you write a query or you have a design and you don't, it's kind of a bad design, you're penalized right up front. But with Netezza, it can kind of hide some of those sins. So I just thought I would mention that. I thought it was kind of an interesting thing that we would see is, you have a query, hey, it runs. Yeah, it takes a couple minutes, it's fine. Well, maybe it should have taken a couple seconds, but it's something that you can end up perpetuating because you're really not penalized up front. So let me see. I'm going to turn it back over to David.
Thanks. But this slide is something that we brought back to the executive team at Constant Contact a few months after using Netezza. And we've done some case studies of the work that had been going on since we landed the box and productionalized it. And being able to tell the head of marketing, the head of the CEO, the head of product and finance that we used to spend 15 hours a month on partner reporting, and now an analyst can do it in 15 minutes and it's 60 times faster was pretty impressive. So this is kind of my money slide where they said, oh, I guess buying this technology was a really good idea. And these are have remained consistent. We've seen in some cases it's twice as fast, in some cases it's 60 times faster than what we were dealing with DB2. So can't be happy enough that we made this change. We are a data-driven, analytically, maniacally focused company, and we saw this as an appliance that was built from the ground up to do analytics and BI, and it's proven to be that for the last year. So I think it fits really well. One of the things that I was relaying at the beginning of this, as we were socializing, was I remember going into one of the exec's offices a while back before we bought the Netezza box and talking about wanting to be in the analytics business, not in the data warehouse business, and that's what the company should focus on, and this has allowed us to do that. The MPP architecture, built for analytics, incredibly fast, as we've shown on that last couple of slides. The ability to leverage things like SPSS, the new capabilities of Cognos 10, and be able to think about how we can integrate this with big data, big insights, Hadoop, were all key factors. And then what I call the 80-20 rule. Let's spend 20% of our time worried about, can I get to the data? Let me spend 80% of my time thinking about, what's the data telling me? How do I drive business with the insights that I'm gleaning? So huge, huge wins for the company.